there is a question that I have been thinking for a long time. What would happen if Arnold, at his prime, walks into a modern gym and starts listening to fitness advice? So imagine somebody comes to Arnold and says to him, you need to do 10 sets per muscle per week. You need to avoid junk volume. And also don't chase the pump. You need to train the minimum amount necessary. And also you have to do every set to failure. I suspect seriously that Arnold would just laugh. Not because that modern exercise science is completely useless, but because Arnold belonged to a completely different philosophy of bodybuilding. Before we continue, there is something extremely important that has to be said. Arnold Schwarzenegger was not a natural bodybuilder, so remember that. He possessed extraordinary genetics, extraordinary recovery ability, and yes, he used anabolic steroids. Therefore, this video is not about copying Arnold's exact training program. In fact, I believe that many natural bodybuilders and also some moderately enhanced would make worse if they start training and copying exact Arnold training program. Now the real question is, what principles can we learn from Arnold and which principles we should avoid? Arnold never asked what is the minimum effective dose. Now today we are all obsessed with some kind of optimization. Everything has to be calculated, perfectly explained, surgically presented and prescribed, because we want the perfect number of sets, the perfect number of reps, the perfect frequency, also perfect exercises. That has gone crazy these days. And also perfect recovery strategy. Arnold actually belonged to a very different era. He never asked what is the least amount of work that I can do and still grow. He actually asked how much productive work can I recover from, and that makes a huge difference. Arnold clearly believed in work capacity. He trained 6 days per week. He performed enormous training volume. Sometimes he even trained twice per day. He chased the pump. He was so passionate, so committed into that, developing that mind-muscle connection. And also, he believed that the body adapts to stress. Now, whether every detail of his philosophy is scientifically perfect is almost beside the point. Clearly, the practical result was undeniable. Arnold built one of the greatest physiques in bodybuilding history, if not the greatest. And here is where I disagree with many people. The lesson is not to copy Arnold. Arnold trained muscles more frequently than I believe most natural bodybuilders should. Recovery is not just muscular recovery. Recovery involves central nervous system, involves connective tissue, involves joints, and also there is a physiological recovery. So you need to understand that muscles can recover within 24 to 72 hours, but it doesn't mean that the other body systems and tissues will recover. So this is the critical point. So for many natural bodybuilders and also moderately enhanced, especially over 40, training muscle twice per week is the greatest mistake that they can do. And that will simply burn their CNS, and impair long-term progress. So the lesson is not to train exactly like Arnold. The lesson is to understand what Arnold understood. And this is that great physiques require extraordinary amount of productive work. So remember this, productive. So the work, the amount of work, the volume that you do has to be productive. It's not just any volume. But I will talk about that a little bit later. It seems to me that modern bodybuilding has simply become afraid of hard work. And this is actually why so many people think and ask, how little can I do? Arnold asked, how much can I recover from? And this is possibly the biggest single difference in mentality that explains why so many modern trainees never discover their true muscular potential. So Arnold's training method and his obviously success and results that he achieved in bodybuilding were completely opposite to this less is more philosophy. Arnold didn't believe in 10 sets per week theory. And modern recommendation is that you should not do more than 10 to 12 sets per week per muscle. So even if you train twice per week, that should be 5 to 6 sets, and then you repeat it again, but never pass the 10, 12, because this is apparently enough to almost give you 100% of muscular development, which is obviously not true when it comes to Arnold's case, and case of so many people who were very successful bodybuilders. So this modern trend is that what we need to do is to discover which is the minimum effective dose. And also there is constantly that variable, that stimulus to fatigue ratio, that so many created a whole philosophy of training and recovery and physiology, so-called sports scientists or similar gurus on YouTube. So that's very important to understand. But Arnold will probably reject all of this idea that for optimal muscle growth, you should do absolutely minimum work. So he never asked about minimum effective dose. He always asked about how much productive work can I recover from. So he trained high volume, and his typical training pattern was that he would do, for example, for chest anywhere from 20 to 30 sets. Back was also 20 to 30 sets. Shoulders were 20 plus sets, and also similar number of sets for other muscle groups. And the importance was of that repeated stimulation through required number of sets that Arnold has proven works fantastic for him. He was looking for that blood flow. He was chasing pump. He even said that the pump is one of the greatest pleasures that one can achieve. Obviously, worked for him. And that pump wasn't just pump. That was something that when you bring every set to near failure will cause that metabolic stress, which will result in optimization of muscle growth. Now, this is what makes bodybuilding very different from powerlifting, which is obviously focusing on less reps and less sets. Now, bodybuilding is all about higher number of reps, all about the time under tension. So, for example, when you do 10 reps and you do 3 seconds per repetition, you will accumulate 30 seconds of time under tension. Now, Arnold may have done shorter time under tension, but reps went up. So higher number of reps is clearly linked directly to that time under tension. And this is what higher number of reps actually offers, this metabolic stress, time under tension, and sarcoplasmic plus myofibrillar growth if every set is taken close to failure. So that work capacity was clearly extremely important for Arnold. And why he didn't believe that only a few sets can do the job? Arnold didn't believe that one set is enough to stimulate muscle growth, one set per exercise. He believed that last few sets per exercise are actually the ones that build muscle. So if you do 5 sets per exercise, last 2 or 3 sets will be probably more important than just one going all out. And now we know why is that. Because more sets you do, high quality sets, you will do more high quality productive reps. Every set brought near failure will give you 3 to 4 high quality reps, which actually decide about growth. Now, if you do more sets, you will accumulate more high productive quality reps. If you do less sets, the number of high productive quality reps will be less. So there will be less stimulation of muscle growth. Period. Proof? Arnold. Of course, Arnold is the best proof. So he didn't believe in one set, he believed in many sets. Arnold understood that recovery itself adapts. So you will adapt and you will recover better over time for higher volume. Now, what that means? That means that, for example, your cardiovascular system will adapt. How do we know that? Well, if you ever try to run, for example, in the beginning, your first runs were like 5, 6, 7 minutes, and you had to stop simply because you could not satisfy the body's requirement for oxygen. So your cardiovascular system wasn't able to deliver enough oxygen to the muscle cells. But now you continue to run. Every other day you go again and again, and in a couple of weeks' time, now you're running 15 minutes. In a couple of months, you're going to be running 40, 60 minutes. So how is that possible now? What happened? Well, obviously, cardiovascular adaptation happened. So your cardiovascular system adapted to more work demand and actually developed that ability to transport more oxygen in the longer period of time to your muscle cells. So cardiovascular system has developed. But what about other systems? Other systems also develop. You have respiratory system, which is directly related to cardiovascular system. Then you have hormonal adaptation. Now, the thing is that muscles also adapt. How do we know that? Of course we know that. What happened when you started training? You used light weights, you did few reps, few sets, and then you couldn't move anymore. But then over the period of weeks, the weight went up, the number of reps went up, the number of sets went up, and now your muscles have adapted. They had that extra growth and ability to perform. After a few months, you are doing more sets, much better reps. You are lifting heavier weights, so we are clearly experiencing muscular adaptation. Also, you have physiological adaptation, and this is adaptation of all your body systems. The synchronization on the higher level now, because the demand has increased, so your whole physiological systems, all of them, they have adapted. And all that contributed to increased work tolerance. So Arnold was absolutely right. Recovery is not fixed. Recovery capacity can be developed. So he did not train around his recovery capability. He trained to increase his recovery capability. Now we come to the most important point, and this is why natural bodybuilders should not copy Arnold's exact volume. Many people do that. Many people come back to me on daily basis and say the same things. Oh, I cannot train like Serge Nubre. I cannot train like Sergio Oliva. I can't train like Arnold. I can't train like you. This is impossible. Well, you cannot train like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you should not train like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So let me explain to you why you should not copy Arnold's volume. First of all, as I mentioned, Arnold was enhanced. Arnold took anabolic steroids for decades, and they also help recovery ability, muscular capacity development, many different improvements. They will speed them up. So if you're not enhanced or you are moderately enhanced, you should stay away from Arnold's volume. Also, Arnold had exceptional genetics. When it comes to genetics, there are many, many areas in which we are all different. First of all, you have the skeletal system. That can genetically be very different. Arnold had a perfect skeletal frame. Now, what is more important is that Arnold also had long muscle bellies. He had perfect tendon insertion. Also, Arnold had a very high distribution of androgen receptors in the body, meaning two people can take the same amount of testosterone, one is going to grow much bigger than another one, simply because of that distribution of androgen receptors in the body. Then also you have that mental genetic ability to focus, to persevere, to be passionate, to go for it, never to stop. So Arnold was exceptionally genetically gifted when it comes to all of this. So there are not many people like Arnold. There are very few people like him. So you have to understand that. You will never be like Arnold. And you should better think about yourself and your genetic potential and try to get the most important principles from his training that you can apply to yourself. Also, Arnold had an extraordinary lifestyle. He was a professional bodybuilder, meaning everything was orbiting around bodybuilding, about his training. He would sleep in the afternoon. He had a long sleep during the night. He could have trained twice per day. He was resting all day long. He had enough finances to obviously support his nutrition, and simply the lifestyle that he lived is hardly going to be replicated. So this is another thing that you should pay attention to. because your lifestyle is probably nothing close to Arnold's lifestyle, and this contributes to that high volume and obviously recovery ability. Naturals will never be able to recover from Arnold's volume. Only Arnold could have recovered from his own volume. Naturals have to be careful about the volume that they are applying. That doesn't mean that you should not train high volume. It just means that you should not copy Arnold. So principle is high volume. Yes, this is the best way to train, best way to keep you in game for a long time, for the rest of your life, also to preserve your tendons and lower the risk of injuries. So there is no question, high volume is the key. But you should adapt that high volume to yourself. So it's not necessarily 30 sets for chest, but if you're doing now 7, 8 sets, maybe you should consider doing 12, 14, 15 sets instead, and then slowly progress and see how that works for you. So the lesson is not to copy his volume. The lesson is not to be afraid of volume. There is another issue with Arnold's training, and this is that Arnold didn't train to failure in every set. Yes, sometimes he would go to failure, but you need to understand that if you do 25 to 30 sets per muscle group, there is no way that you will go to failure. Because if you go to failure in every set, you will end up doing 5, 6, 7 sets per muscle group, and that's it, because it's impossible to do more. There are so many different barriers. Your central nervous system will completely be fried. You will be burnt out. Also, your connective tissues won't be able to take it. And he didn't do that. So if somebody as him did 25, 30 sets per muscle group, clearly the sets were not to failure. They were close to failure. This is also what I advise for naturals and also enhanced bodybuilders to do. Close to failure, and that will allow you to do required number of sets. Maybe like Arnold, 25 to 30. Maybe less than that, but still higher number of sets, higher volume. Today's modern bodybuilders, they are obsessed with failure, and mainly due to that heavy-duty philosophy that Mike Mentzer invented, promoted, but never actually applied in his own case, because he was the best when he trained high volume. A lot of people are now going to failure in every set, and this is why so many people getting injured, so many people are frustrated because they are not making results as they're expecting. And obviously, it's much easier to lift heavy in few sets than to use a bit lighter weight, go near failure, and then hit 20, 30 sets per muscle group. That's much harder. Everybody who doesn't believe me should simply try. Do one set of squats, 8 reps with very heavy weights. And now do 7 sets with less weight, 20 reps each, and come back to me and tell me what is harder. Clearly, what is easier in this modern world of easy and less is going to be very high weights, high intensity, less sets. So fine, if you want to do that, you can do it. But this is more like powerlifting training system, not a bodybuilding one. Bodybuilding is all about reps, sets, high volume. Proven so many times. No need to repeat. Also, there is a difference between effort and distraction. You remember what Lee Haney famously said, stimulate, do not annihilate. So you need to stimulate growth. You should not obliterate. You should not annihilate, destroy. And Arnold didn't destroy his muscle. This is why he was able to do 25, 30 sets. So if you are really going for it beyond failure with some force reps, negatives, whatever else, you will destroy your muscle and you will not stimulate, you will obliterate. So Arnold did exactly opposite. How do we know? But simply the fact that he did 25, 30 sets suggests that he would not destroy his muscles in these failure sets or, God forbid, beyond failure. So this is why Arnold performed that enormous volume. But again, it was working for him, but not necessarily you should copy him. And that tremendous, enormous volume actually contributed to accumulation of productive work. As I explained in so many videos, when you do more sets near failure, you will end up with doing more reps, more high-quality productive reps. So if you do 6 sets and you have 4 quality reps, there will be 24 quality reps. But if you do 30 sets and you have 4 quality reps per set, you will be doing 120 quality high productive reps. Clearly, you will be stimulating much more muscle growth than in the former case. Now, I want to mention 2 very opposite training philosophies, simply because they are relevant to so many people today. So, first one is Mike Mentzer's theory of heavy duty. It based that his philosophy on low volume, going to failure and beyond failure. So we're talking about maximum intensity, and he was always talking about recovery as limitation. So he would advise every muscle to be trained once per week. Then later on he developed further every muscle in 10 days, then in 2 weeks. So he ended up advising that you should train every muscle once per month. But this is his theory. He promoted it purely for marketing purposes, nothing else. Did he do it himself? No, he never did it. How did he train when he was in best shape? High volume, like everybody else. There is no need to say more about it. You do your research if you don't believe me, but Mike Mentzer was the best when he trained high volume. The rest was business, marketing, and hence heavy-duty training system. Now, Arnold was on the other side, very opposite. He promoted high volume. He himself did always anywhere from 20 to 30 sets per muscle group. Moderate intensity, going to failure occasionally, but most of the time near failure. Therefore, he was able to do so many sets. And he believed in adaptation as the solution. He didn't see recovery as limitation, because recovery ability, he believed, can be developed. And he proved it himself. So you have these 2 different camps of training, which are very real. Today, most people like to train less because it takes less time, it takes less effort. They find the explanation in all this, some pseudo-scientific experiments, and they stick to this, I believe, simply because it's less and it's easier and it's shorter. The problem is they don't get results, and more often than not, they all get injured. I witness that on a daily basis. So Mike Mentzer asked how little he could do. Arnold asked how much he could do. So you see, the difference in these 2 philosophies is vast, and is entirely up to you what you want to embrace. So this is important for natural bodybuilders, and this is something that you should not copy when it comes to Arnold's frequency. First of all, Arnold was training 6 days per week. So this is too much for a natural bodybuilder, and also somebody who is moderately enhanced. He was training every muscle twice per week, sometimes 3 times per week before the competitions. He would train before the show twice per day. This is something that you can simply forget about if you're naturally or, again, moderately enhanced. Also, he had very enhanced recovery because he was taking anabolic steroids, and they help greatly when it comes to recovery. So natural or even enhanced, I would not advise to copy his frequency, because it's simply not possible to recover as he did, not just because he was taking steroids, but he was exceptionally genetically gifted. You have to understand that there is something called CNS recovery, central nervous system recovery, and especially for natural bodybuilders, training every muscle once per week, training 4 or 5 times per week is all that you need to do. More than that, and you will overstress your central nervous system. Therefore, you will not grow. There are also connective tissues, they need recovery, and for that reason, I advise and I explain in so many videos why you should train every muscle once per week. So what natural bodybuilders can learn from Arnold? First of all, this is work ethics. Arnold was known to have extremely high work ethics. Whatever he did in life, he was working extremely hard. He wouldn't stop. Nothing would deter him from achieving his goals. There were obstacles on the way. Sometimes, your plans will go right, but sometimes they will slow, or there are going to be problems. But still, hard work and work ethics, they must not be deterred. And this is something that we need and we should learn from Arnold. Also, passion. Arnold was extremely passionate about his training. So training is not just go and do it like a robot. Tick the boxes, look at the phone program for your online personal trainer. I've done this, I've done it, I go home, I'll change. No, you're not going to change, because you need to be passionate about training. First of all these, programs and stuff, forget about it. You need to connect, you need to feel, you need to, develop that mind-muscle connection. Also, every rep that you do, you need to perform with feelings, with passion. If the passion is not there, if you're not passionate, nothing is going to happen. Another thing you should learn from Arnold is high productive volume. Again, volume is very important and is critical only if it's productive. So whatever you do, the number of sets, reps, they have to be in right form. Number of sets has to be done in suggested number of reps. Arnold did 25, 20, 30. You should do as many as you can, not necessarily as Arnold. And also, it has to be productive. So these sets have to come near failure. Don't go to failure, or don't just do light sets. They need to be close to failure. Mind-muscle connection is another thing that we need to learn from Arnold. He was so focused in his training sessions, he would imagine his muscles growing, biceps, chest, back, constantly using everything that was possible to use in order to do better training session. All psychological methods that you can imagine, you can come to use them, motivate yourself, but make sure that you have that mind-muscle connection. Don't use your phone, don't talk to others. Gym shouldn't be a social place. Yes, you can socialize after your workout or before your workout, but during the workout, you're doing business there. It is something that is very important. You can't just distract yourself with other people, Instagram, Facebook, filming yourself all the time. This is very wrong attitude. Another thing from Arnold, building work capacity. So Arnold has proven that recovery can develop, but also work capacity can develop as well. So if you're now doing 10 sets, let's say for legs, don't despair. You will be able to do 12, 15 sets one day. You will see how your legs will change. I have clients on a daily basis who started with 7, 8 sets for legs in the whole workout, and now they're doing 20. So the work capacity has improved dramatically. Their legs, they doubled. This is amazing. You just read the comments, what people put on my channel, and they are all improving simply because they have applied this work capacity as something that can change, that can improve. So you should do the same. And probably the last one, but not the least, is long-term consistency. Arnold didn't build his body overnight. You will not change overnight. It may take years, sometimes decades, for you to reach your optimal genetic potential. So you need to be aware that bodybuilding is a marathon and requires enormous consistency. Consistency means that you keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully, with all this advice that I'm giving you, you will be on the right track, and you just need to persevere. You need to be consistent in doing the right thing. So long-term consistency, not stopping, not taking all the time these so-called, again, modern gimmicks like deload. People are asking me, when should I take 1 week deload? Why should you take deload? I mean, what is that? I never took deload in my life. I've been training 45 years. I never missed a training session. So am I overtrained? Do I look overtrained to you? It's absolute nonsense. So this long-term consistency is something that will build your strong character. And all these things that I've just mentioned, we should actually learn from Arnold. Now, what you should not copy from Arnold, again, first of all, don't copy his recovery, because he was enhanced. He was taking steroids, so he could have recovered. He could have trained 6 days per week, twice per day sometimes, training every muscle twice per week, sometimes 3 times per week. That's Arnold. Never copy that. It will not happen. You should train every muscle once per week. As I explained in so many videos, this is the best advice I can give every natural, unenhanced bodybuilder, that every muscle should be trained only once per week. So don't again copy Arnold, because you are not Arnold. Don't copy his exact volume. number of sets that he did, this was very high volume, and he could have recovered from those sets. Now you need to do as many sets as you can do to be rather on the side of high volume rather than low volume, and make sure that you can recover. So whatever you do now, if you do 10 sets, increase to 12, 13 sets, make sure that you can recover, spend a few weeks doing that, then maybe jump to 15 sets, and one step at a time, because the body will adapt, but it will take a bit of time. Also, you should not copy his entire lifestyle, because it's simply impossible. Arnold lived under different circumstances, and his lifestyle was his lifestyle. This was his life. You have your life, and try to implement as much as necessary and good advice from this video you can take, but do not copy anybody else's lifestyle, especially Arnold's lifestyle. So remember, the goal is not to become Arnold. The goal is to understand why Arnold became Arnold. So contrary to modern bodybuilding that asks, what is the least amount of work I can do? Arnold asked, what is the maximum amount of productive work that I can recover from? And perhaps this single difference explains why so many people today never discover what their bodies are truly capable of. After 40 years in bodybuilding, competing 46 times, winning 17 titles, coaching over 3,500 clients, and helping them to get in the best shape of their lives, I have published for you 13 ebooks which are fully loaded with everything that you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. So if you want to start building muscles finally and start burning body fat, simply click on that link in the comments and you can download my ebooks. Also, for people who want to learn how to train in perfect form, which is absolutely essential, and who want to stop wasting time in the gym, I have published for you Bodybuilding Blueprint course, which is made of 8 videos in which I personally demonstrate and explain the most effective exercises for all major muscle groups. So if you want to learn how to train in perfect form, click on that link in the comments and you can access my Bodybuilding Blueprint course. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, and also send me your comments. And until the next video, I wish you all the best.